Okay, to start our project, we're going to have a few things in consideration. Since we are going to work with some sort of fine carpentry, there are some tools that need to be, good or, fairly good to be able to achieve some sort of nice finish. So we're going to start with a few things. I have that Orbital Sander that is there on that little box. And those discs are some sort of like a hook and loop, they're called. So they have some sort of Velcro on the bottom. It's a really good tool to have things smooth. The other thing is that I have, as you can see here, from a company called Chicago Electric, I have a small router table with a router on the bottom. Router is the one that is going to help us to make this type of grooves on the door, so we can actually put it together and we can give those pretty much three aspects. The first one will be the outside one, the inside, and then the one on the other side. So that is pretty much what we need for the doors. Now, having consideration that in order to do this stuff, you need to have some router bits that are designed for that. Now, you're gonna see in this router bit how they actually work. One goes into the other, but they actually need to be calibrated so one can actually get inside the other. I mean, it sounds kind of weird, but you have to make certain type of incisions, and then you have to modify the height of your bit to be able to have them kind of locking in. So because this particular router bit has a two-part component, meaning like the raised panel, which is the one on the left, and the one that makes the groove on the vertical and horizontal boards. Piece of wood. Then we're going to use this, in this case, only the right one, because we're going to have a flat panel door to mimic the one that we have on the floor. What else? You're going to need a small miter saw in this case. I do have bigger miter saws, but in this case we're going to use a small miter saw with a fine finish blade. And the same thing with the table saw. You want to make sure that your table saw has a disc, and we're going to change that disc for a fine disc that will help you to have a fine achievement on your boards, because we're going to use a 1/4 inch plywood, fine plywood, to be able to make the panel in the middle. Now you also see that we have these two hinges, and for the hinges we have other bits that are going to help us with that, and I'll show you in a moment. So let's start with the assembling of all your things and having in consideration all your wood and all the stuff, and then we just continue with the next. To start with our grooving of the wood, or carving of the wood, you want to make sure that you have the right washer over here to support the guard, to that is going to be a little loose over here on this, not too much, all right, not too tight. And also you want to coordinate depending on what type of design or pattern you want to use. In this case, what I did is that I marked the center of this, which is 3/8, and a piece of 3/4 wood, fine wood, and then I'm putting this right in the middle of the two sections over here where the bearing ends, and it's really crucial. For instance, there are different things. This is the OG part, and then you have the assembly of the chuck over here that is going to give you some other things. And that one over there is the bearing, or the pivot bearing. And then I will say one of these on the bottom. This is called this slothing cutter. So every of them, depending on what type of bit you're using, is going to have different type of applications. So you want to make sure that you follow just the heights and stuff like that. Obviously, you have these guards that you need to pre-arrange, organize, set up. And when you install this with a 1/2 inch chunk, meaning like the support that it is, you want to make sure that you tie those things really well with your keys to make sure that that's fine. Obviously, in this one, it's really easy to remove the height and to adjust the height and all the stuff, so it makes it very practical. So you can tie it up, fasten it up once you're done with the right heights and stuff like that. And that's pretty much it. So let's start with that. Let's start by making some of the grooves. We're going to start with a 15-inch wide door by about 40 inches long. So you'll see in a moment how we start. So okay, when you're working with these two heights, what you can notice here that I use the vacuum there to connect it, so we can suck all the wood dust out, and we can work in a nice clean environment. So we have the two pieces with us. Now, if you don't know much about, cabinetry, they do have, kind of some names. I was going over them in Spanish, but I'm gonna and then here obviously the panel or the raised panel that you're gonna use. So we have in our piece right now the profile, that is this one right here that has that, and we also have the rail. Now the rail is made, or both are made, by adjusting the height of the first blade, the only single blade that you have. So I want to try to show you something here. So okay, so you see the profile that we have over here is the same profile that we have on the other side, but to make it interlock, you want to make sure that that you adjust the bit in a way that will allow you to do the stuff. So I recommend you to use small little pieces, some sort of like a sample pieces, as you make it, and you adjust it in the height that you want, and you keep those pieces as your guides whenever you're going to set up your machine again. So if you're cutting a lot of wood, obviously make all your cuts first, and then you go ahead and pass them through the blade, so you don't need to be changing the heights constantly. But here's what happens once you have one. When you have the race, let me see the rails against the panel over here, or the profile or the style. If you notice, they actually lock really, really well between them, and that's kind of like the thing that you need to make sure that it works perfectly, because inside here we're going to put our panel. So this lines over here has to be nice and flush, and that obviously take a little bit of time. And if you notice, I'm not going to claim that, oh my God, I'm like really good at it or whatever. It's just that you need to make sure that you adjust the pieces before you start cutting massively. So that's it. Then we have the pieces. Now, having consideration that this is going inside there about 5/16, so you want to make sure that you add up that when you're cutting to the width. In other words, these ones are going to be 37 by 14 and a quarter, and because this wood is actually going inside there without taking so much, you need to add up a little bit more, about 1/4 of an inch on both sides, 5/16, so you can actually get to the width that you want on your door, right? The height we have it, which is the length of the style or profile piece of wood, and then on the rails you want to make sure that you add up a little bit more depending on what type of style you have. Okay, so that's really important to know. I want to show you something that is really cool, which is that not necessary when you're working with a particular style or profile, or bit or router bit. Now we have a guide that will let us know what is it that we're going to use. See, if you notice on this area, I put rail up, or riel in Spanish, and that we know that this is going to always work that way. Now, if you flip it around, you have the other one, which is the profile. So you're not going to get confused, especially when you're cutting and you're making, because you're going to cut obviously long pieces to make the rails, but then you're going to get confused. So you want to make sure that you know how you're cutting that. So it's really important to have a piece that will help you to understand how you're going to put the height of your pieces, right? So unless you get a lot of practice and say, well, all my doors are going to be 16 inches wide, but when you have different type of heights, sometimes having a guide that will help you to know where the height of your bit has to be is really crucial. Now, I guess it happens the same way when you have the panel. Here we have a 1/4 of an inch panel, and this panel was measured to fit here inside there. I just gave like a 1/16 of an inch of difference, so we can play with the height. I mean, with the height or the part of the profile, and then obviously it goes all the way with the same purpose. So we're going to sand down these edges a little bit so it doesn't give us a lot of issues with a little pound sander. We're going to put some glue, and we're going to put it together in a flat surface. Try to find something as flat as possible so you can let it dry comfortably there. Now we have our door assembled. So what we did is that in that groove that is on the edges of the profiles and the rails, or the style and the rails, you want to put some glue, really good glue, and then the panel is going to be squeezed in the middle. Now, as you do that, you're going to need, a hammer, a piece of wood to kind of, push it in a little bit. Obviously, a square. You want to make sure that all those corners are nice and square. and just clean it up with a piece of rag, a wet rag. If you have extra glue, like that normal happens when you put some good amount of glue, take that out. Now the next thing that you want to do is put it in a nice flat place and let it dry for a good time. Put some weight on them. If you're making more than one, just put a good amount of weight on it so they don't curve or something like that. That's kind of like the tendency of a lot of these things. And what else? And then let it dry, sand it down. If you have any type of little imperfections, sand them down really well. If you're gonna paint in solid colors, this is in the case that you have like a nice fine I don't know, walnut, or you name the wood, oak, maple, birch, whatever you want to use, depending on what type of wood you're going to use. Obviously use the finish that you want. But if you're going to do that stuff, obviously put your sealer in a clear coat, and if you're going to paint it, put primer, sand it down, and then the final color. So that's pretty much it for these videos. I hope you like it. Please subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Also share and like it. Comment as well. I like to answer as many things as I can answer. So I see you in the next one, and thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.